I'm here with Dusty Davidson of Workshop. Dusty has a long history of starting companies in the Omaha area, including Brightmix, Flywheel, CTO for Triple Seat. And we're talking a little bit about the nascent company Workshop. And so I'm going to just ask some real simple questions. Dusty, can you tell me what problem Workshop is trying to solve?
Yeah, I think workshops exist in the world to solve kind of an internal communication problem within growing organizations, whereby I think that like how companies share and disseminate the most important bits of information around goals, around strategy, around these sort of updates with their teams, I think is an leading driver of engagement of teams, of alignment, and ultimately company performance. And yet you have Slack on one end of the spectrum, which is at scale, and not even at scale, as a company grows, gets very noisy and very loud. And you have email, which is similarly noisy for different reasons. And you have all of this information that's critical to alignment and engagement of employees that kind of gets lost in that noise. And so how do you create a central hub, sort of repository for that style of communication, and also empower the teams to sort of send out that kind of information in a unified way? And so you could think of it as a modern take on the internet. It's a modern take on how internal comms works at a company. But at the end of the day, we're looking to help companies have better aligned and engaged employees through delightful platform for internal communication.
That's really interesting. So as you describe that, to me, it sounds like something that you're probably targeting companies of a certain size. So more than 100 big companies, or is this useful for small companies as well?
I think today, and the way we look at it is that this style of communication really starts to break down past about 100. So I think we think about the world as 100 to 500 employees as being a real target. I think longer term, as the product matures, I think you want to be a part of a company's communication workflow early, and so that you're not yet another tool, but you're indispensable as companies grow, right? Like as a company grows, how do you continue to help those teams feel small, right? And so you can see, I think over time, it becoming a thing at 30 or 50 and baked into a workflow at that point. But I think today we look at it as really a tool for companies that have achieved some level of scale and are ramping up pretty quickly.
So within that, it seems to me that there's probably some bifurcation between the difference between corporate communications and project communications. Am I on the right path, or is this all kind of corporate stuff? How do you think about the communications going on internal to a company and how Workshop can be useful?
Yeah, I think that if you look at most companies at a certain size, there is corporate communications or internal comms that is disseminating things like all hands or strategy or whatever it is, kind of top down. And yet there's all kinds of things that happen across an org that, from a communications perspective, that teams are running, right? Whether that's your employee resource group sending out newsletters, or your product team sending product updates to the company. And in my experience, and as we talk to customers, those things happen in silos and happen in different ways, right? Whether it's corporate or not. And we look at Workshop as a way to unify that and then provide a home for all of that information, so that it's discoverable and subscribable, and ultimately kind of like easy to find those super important bits of information.
Awesome. So this is not your first go around. You've started a number of companies. Why this one? Why are you jumping into this next thing? You recently exited Flywheel, and now you're doing something different. So how does this shape Dusty Davidson? Why did you make this decision? What's your plans? Like all those sorts of things.
Yeah, we learned a lot on the Flywheel ride. 9 years almost building that from 3 guys in a garage up to I think 250 people, and ultimately exiting, and then spending time at the acquiring company, and we learned a lot about how to grow and scale teams and a company, and all of these, how to build products at scale. And honestly, it sort of starting over again is a way to kind of, from my perspective, like leverage all of those learnings into being able to hopefully grow bigger, faster, better. And in a lot of ways, we get excited about that, right? Like leveraging our collective sort of learnings about from the last 8 or 9 years. So that's first and foremost. Two, it's just like, it's an opportunity for us to get the band back together. Rick and myself have worked together for over a decade. Ben and Derek, our other partners, worked at Flywheel for many years before going on to start, build, and sell another software company. And so, it's like an opportunity to work with great people on, on interesting things, and hopefully provide some value and delight to our customers in the meantime.
So you're a multi-time founder, but many of the people who will read the article or see this video have never started a company but are thinking about it. What's advice now that you've done it a bunch of times that you're like, you should definitely do this, this, and this, and don't do this, that, and the other thing?
Yeah, so the number one piece of advice that I always give is, like, I am a firm believer in having co-founders, at least one. It's lonely at the top, as they say, and it's, I think, important to have people that are incentivized and aligned in the same way. I don't think it's enough to just have employees, right? It's hard, especially in the early days when it's extremely hard. And so that is advice that I give, but the caveat to that is you have to be able to pick great partners, and people that are value aligned, people that believe in the same things that you do, want to build the same company to the same scale in the same way, that they want to treat the employees the same way, and the customers. All of those things have to be in alignment. And frankly, at the end of the day, are these people that you want to be in the foxhole with, in good times and in bad. And I think often people rush into that, and they pick partners that they haven't worked with, or they don't know well enough to I think really, it seems good in the beginning, but then it gets hard, or money gets involved, and it becomes complicated. And so number one advice, have partners. Number two advice, make sure they're the absolute right people to get married to, frankly.
Fair. Last question. What can the community do to help either Workshop or you, or any other issue that you think is important for them to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think the way that the community can help is to be a customer. In fact, I like this a lot. One of the things that's neat about the Silicon Prairie or Omaha or Nebraska, or whatever it might be, that you're pretty connected to most businesses and folks around. And while it's not super scalable to just completely leverage a network, in the early days, I think being a customer of a startup from the region is like the number one way that you can help, right? It's not only money, but it's feedback on product, and it's all these other things at a time when they haven't yet figured out how to scale and repeatably, have a sales team and SDRs and inbound and all this stuff. If you could line up 200 local customers to Workshop, or any of the kind of dozen other companies that are starting, these days, that's massive. I mean, that's huge. So, it is a bit of a commercial, hey, be a customer Workshop, but it's bigger than that. I think it is truly, in my opinion, the number one way to support.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on starting Workshop. I'm excited for you. We've been friends a long time, and so I love hearing and talking to you and hearing about all the things you're working on. So I'm really excited, and good luck. Godspeed.
Thanks, Sam.